In Pantheon, Rise of the Fallen, the upcoming MMORPG by Visionary Realms, the world of Terminus holds many wonders, both pre-existing and constructed. From the natural beauty of the Rail Heights in Fairthale's Oldwood Forest, to the grandiose design of the Tower of the Reckless Magician, there's many sights to behold. But few hold the historical significance of the places known as the Sanctums. In this video, I'll do a deep dive into what the lore tells us about the Sanctums of Terminus. Using details from the published lore, developer interviews, and a little bit of speculation, we can paint a picture of these places. As there hasn't been any concept art or screenshots of the Sanctums released yet, we're left to imagine what each Sanctum may look like based on this information. But in the November 11th, 2021 Visionary Realms development update, Chris Joppa Perkins actually commented on the relationship between the lore and the environments we may experience, specifically citing the Sanctums. Here's what he said.
The relationship between the lore of our game and the game and the experience in the world that we're building, very, very significant. And so I expect the moment when you walk into the Burning Sanctum or the Silent Sanctum and you kind of start breathing in the history of what you know has happened there and the way that like the myths and the legends and the stories of the world permeate through the player base and through the player experience. It's going to be really important for these places to be brought to life. And so that's the goal for sure.
As Pantheon continues along its road to alpha testing and the world of Terminus is developed, we may see one sooner or later. But until then, let's hear what the written lore tells us about the Sanctums of Terminus. A Pantheon Plus production. What are the Sanctums? In short, they're structures built by 6 of the 9 races of Terminus, that being the Elves, Dwarves, Humans, Archai, Ogres, and Darkmer. Places of safety in a dangerous world, and during a dangerous era known as the Deicide War. The lore tells us, doomed to defeat, the Sacred 6 races embraced a prophecy that warned them to but endure the many perils and the darkness would be crushed. To this end, the 6 constructed the 3 monolithic refuges called Sanctums, barricading their hopes and races within. According to the lore, the Deicide War began in 470 IH and lasted 15 years. The races of Terminus struggled to fight back against the ravaging lord, his revenant armies, and a number of their own deities turned by his influence. In their desperation, they congregated to pool their strength. The lore states, at the summit on Vezu, a mist-soaked island in the midst of 2 converging oceans that nearly disappears for months at a time, the breadth of consequence behind the revenant threat was unfolded to the leadership of each attending race. It was from this historic council that the decision to undertake the Sanctum Edict was made. Hence, the Sanctums were born. It's noted, each megalithic hulk was conceived with the aim of housing the races for as long as necessary once they had bled as much attrition out of the Revenant and High Mortal armies as possible. In short, coffins to outlast the night. But the night was vast, and one coffin alone would not suffice. The Sacred 6 built 3 Sanctums across Terminus, and in doing so, allies arose. The Dwarves and Archai, together, built the Frozen Sanctum, buried in the storm drifts of tenebrous tundra. Both races hailed from Whitethaw, the frigid southern continent of Terminus, and knew well the barrier the climate would present. It's noted, at Vesu, Causus was asked, but what natural defense shall the Frozen Sanctum have? To which he famously replied,
Tenebris, and Tenebris alone.
Their alliance was one not only of location, but also of skill. The lore tells us, the Archai and Dwarves waged a choreographed campaign of elusiveness in shrewd tandem. However, sacrifice would still be required. The lore goes on to note, in 484, Rel Siren of the Archai was slain after sealing himself outside the door of the Frozen Sanctum. In desperation, the Revenant forces ordered the Magin Key create columns of infernal black flame to burn constantly, slowly encroaching upon the refuge from each side of Tenebris. The magic seemingly served its purpose as, eventually, the Sanctum was entered by nearly all. What remains of the Frozen Sanctum and its surrounding area in present-day Terminus? One theory may be something that J.N. Gerhardt, Pantheon's lead writer, noted in the April 2021 Developer Roundtable when he identified an area of White Thaw named the Black Sand Sea. Perhaps the columns of infernal black flame transformed the tundra, leaving the Frozen Sanctum an island of darkness amongst the pristine snows. What dwells in the Frozen Sanctum, though, remains a mystery. Humans and elves also share a bond of survival on Terminus, a bond forged by strife and peril on the Kingsreach continent. Together they constructed the Silent Sanctum, nestled behind a natural choke point the mountain Rhones. While it isn't clear how the elves came to the Silent Sanctum, it is detailed how the humans did so. The lore notes the young heir Avendir spent his first night as king shepherding survivors back to the Silent Sanctum in the belly of the Rhones, not stopping for the dawn or to grieve. But why is it named the Silent Sanctum? One theory involves its location. While the lore describes it as being in the Rhone Mountains, the Silent Plains are a centrally located area on the Kingsreach continent, a place equally accessible by both elves and humans. Further support for this comes from J.N. Gerhardt when he stated, "The silence refers to the end of battle, hostilities, war, this time of lament that came afterwards. And when the lament was over, silence. It was a plain of battle where the Revenant take a couple footholds and ultimately lay siege to Havensong. When you go there, you will see vestiges of the battle and of the Revenant. Perhaps the Silent Sanctum is where the Revenant forces and mortal armies clashed. But unlike the Frozen Sanctum, the Silent Sanctum had no environmental defenses to rely upon, only its inhabitants. For a deeper look at this theory, check out my friend Ben and I's article linked in the description, as he makes a strong case for the Silent Sanctum being a namesake of the area in which it resides. The last of the Sanctums, we learn that the Burning Sanctum would be constructed in the petrified forest of Kakalar. The lore doesn't detail how the Burning Sanctum came to be, so we're left to assume the Ogres and Darkmere, the two races of the Sacred Six on the Rainfall continent, had a hand in its construction. Their alliance was strong, after all, and the lore reflects how the Ogres stood in awe when the Darkmere's vicious attacks decimated the Revenant's naval forces. It states, so fierce was their zeal that the Ogres assembled on the shoreline, watched in astonishment until their allies had finished the fight. Yet how long this alliance lasted and what became of the Darkmere afterwards is unclear, as when the Sacred Six returned to Vezu, the banners of the Darkmere were absent, suggesting they did not stay true to the Sanctum Edict. There is no further mention of the Darkmere seeking shelter in the Burning Sanctum, unlike the Ogres. The lore tells us, unable to defend the twin or lone assaults, the Ogres withdrew across Rainfall to Kakalar and the Burning Sanctum. And furthermore, when the Revenant forces fell upon Broken Maw, the reeling nation sought shelter in the Burning Sanctum, themselves devastated like any common race. Much like the Frozen Sanctum, the Burning Sanctum relied on the natural landscape for its defenses. The recently released lore tale The Bait provided considerable details about the sights and sounds of Kakalar. It noted layers of smoke flowed like rivers through the air and on the ground. White, black, and gray, each the smoldering residue of centuries of war between the ancient trees and the older yet fresher lava flow. Ash storms are also noted to frequent the area. More succinctly, the lore states that Kakalar is a wasteland of ash, heat, and time. Yet, like the Frozen Sanctum, the climate surrounding the Burning Sanctum did not prove the impenetrable defense to those it meant to repel. The lore states, the Ravaging Lord found a means to stop the magma moat flowing around the Burning Sanctum. What happened next remains a mystery, although we recently did learn that Kakalar is home to at least one ogre. Bel Iris informs us that Arakamel dwells in the petrified forest of Kakalar. Arakamel Dawn is also referred to as the Beast of Kakalar in the tale. Perhaps the Dawn has made the Burning Sanctum his personal refuge, a place he has evaded the bounty rumored to remain on his head amongst the ogres. There exists one sanctum on each continent, Kingsreach, Rainfall, and Whitethaw. But there also exists a fourth continent as well, Frojanakta. Might there be an undiscovered sanctum not detailed to date? And what purpose from a gameplay perspective will the sanctum serve? Let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, cheers, and thanks for watching.